All praise, glory, and honor is most certainly due to the Most High God of the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to you in the name of Jesus. This is your brother Elisha Israel of the House of Faith, and I count it truly a blessing each and every single time that I can come before you to preach the word of God. Never count it as a light thing to do so. I'm a little late. Apologies for that. With that, brothers and sisters, I want to get right into today's topic, and the topic is proper worship. Proper worship. You know, one of the main problems when it comes to service of God is mankind's audacity to disobey God and then simultaneously say that he or she is serving God. This is what we do as human beings, because as I stated in the last lesson that I did, we are led according to the flesh. Peace to you, sister. And it leads to all kinds. Peace to you. Leads to all kinds of problems. When, quite frankly, you think about who God is, how in the world can we make up our way to worship him or to serve him? If you think about some of your parents didn't play. You might have had a mother who didn't play, or a daddy who you knew. If that garbage wasn't taken out and your homework wasn't done, the chores weren't done, it's going to be a problem. Why? Because he demanded that you do things a certain way. Okay, he demanded that you do things a certain way. And so if your father could be like that, who is imperfect, if your mother who could be like that, who is not omniscient, how in the world could we not think that God is the same way? And we want to start off in Psalms, the 19th chapter, because he demands that you worship him a certain type of way. So the first thing we want to find out, though, is there a God? That should be the starting point. Because if it's somebody that we have to obey, quite naturally, we don't want to obey him. We in the sense of obeying somebody, right, means you got to bring yourself into some type of subjection. Who wants to do that? Right? So it's much easier to not deny the existence of God. Right? So this is what people do. They deny the existence of God so they don't have to worship him, or they form and fashion their own God. We're going to deal with both. Okay, so this is Psalms 19 chapter and verse 1. It says in Psalms 19 and verse 1, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Okay, so the heavens, when you look up, it's telling you that there's a God. The creation tells you that there's a God. You have all these theories about how we got here, where we came from, how things began. You hear explosions, and people talk about primordial soup and evolution, biological evolution, and these things. They mention Darwin and all this. But my question to you is where did the substance come from? Where did the material to fashion what we see and experience through our five senses, where did that derive from? It did not come out of just nothing. It didn't just come out of just nothing. When you see that there's a creation, it indicates that there is something greater than you and I. And that's why it says the heavens declare the glory of God. See, the works of God show that he exists. Day unto day uttereth speech, night unto night showeth knowledge. Again, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. You didn't do it. I didn't do it. So who did it? It was God. He says, day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. See, this is done again through the works of God. It said there is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Anywhere you go, the heavens speak to you, brothers and sisters, showing you, declaring that God exists. Okay? He said their line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun. So the heavens house the sun, brothers and sisters. Again, who made the sun? How did it get there? You always find a problem when you don't start with, like I said, where did the material for the sun come from? People, that's what I'm saying. You don't want to start from that, because if you start from there, you have to acknowledge that God exists. So it says he, which is as a bride chamber coming out of his chamber, as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. His going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it. Meaning he's talking about his orbit. And there is nothing here from the heat thereof. It could touch every place eventually. But then he says something. So now once you acknowledge that there is a God, and it doesn't take long for you to understand that something beyond you made all of this, the next step is the logical step. The next logical step is to find out what that God requires. Is he just God and that's it? And I can do what I want him. Or is he God and he has a standard? And he has a standard. His standard is Torah, brothers and sisters. Verse 7, it says, the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. So now, his law is perfect. Then it says, it converts the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. He says, so if you want wisdom, brothers and sisters, you need to deal with his law. That gives you wisdom. His law is where wisdom derives from. Just show you that Psalms 119 and 98 says, though, it said 97, oh, how I love thy law. It is my meditation all the day. Thou through thy commandments has made me wiser than mine enemies, for they are ever with me. I have more understanding than all my teachers, for thy testimonies are my meditation. I understand more than the ancients because I keep thy precepts. Then he says, I have refrained my feet from every evil way that I might keep thy word. Like he said, it converts the soul. So he said, the statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold, sweeter also than the honey and the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is thy servant warned, and in keeping of them there is great reward. So now there's a benefit to keeping the law of God. And that's how you know how to serve him. It's how you know how to do everything. What I mean by that, I'm talking about how you walk in this life, how you serve God. What are you supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do when it comes to issues of morality? See, how you supposed to serve him. He tells you that in his what? In his law. In his law. Let's go to Isaiah, the 45th chapter. Because he manifested his law unto a particular people. And let's see what he said. This same one that made the heavens. It says in Isaiah 45 and verse 18. For thus saith the Lord that created the heavens. Now the one that created it has something to say. He said, he hath established it, he had created it not in vain, he formed it to be inhabited. I am the Lord and there is none else. So he's telling you who he is. And he said, I have not spoken in secret in the dark place of the earth. I said not unto the seed of Jacob, seek ye me in vain. I, the Lord, speak righteousness. I declare things that are right. So now he came and manifested himself unto one people. Assemble yourselves and come, draw near together, ye that are escaped of the nations. They have no knowledge that set up the wood of their graven image and pray unto a God that cannot save. So now you got those that are praying to a God that doesn't exist. And they see, he says again, assemble yourselves and come draw near together, ye that are escaped of the nations, that they have no knowledge, that set up the wood of their graven image and pray unto a God that cannot save. So like I said, you got some that would make up a God, deny the existence of God. But then you have those that will make a God, right? And in making a God, you make your own standard as to what that God wants you to do. And if you don't meet that standard, oh, well, it's not really God. You see how that works? That's how you can go to a Christian church and it's all about failure. I'm not talking about the failure in the sense of all of sin that comes short of the glory of God. We understand that, but it's failure in the sense that it's not even an effort into trying to keep the law, statutes, and commandments of God. It's just straight up failure, 100% failure. But it's success in establishing your own standard of worship, your own standard of morality, your own standard of do's and don'ts in regard to what God requires. You have literally made it up and simultaneously talk as if it came out of the scriptures. But then we'll say that you don't have to keep the law of God. We got this. You, as Paul said, you dealing with another, someone come preaching another, in another spirit, preaching another gospel, another Jesus. That's what man has done. Wholesale. How can you make God? When you talking about the Most High, you are talking about an individual. And people always ask that question. I hear that question all the time from people who don't believe God exists. Well, who created God? It's really a stupid question. It really is. And that just, it's an ignorant question. Let me rephrase it. It's an ignorant question because people don't realize if you saying God or a higher power like that, you are, it should be understood that you're talking about an entity or in someone who is not created. That should be understood. But I think that's a really good question because all that we experience is finite and all that we experience is created. So we think God creates. No, that's the one that's outside of the rules that govern us. He's the one that created it all. And when you understand, it's the one that Jesus that created all things. He created the world, the Bible tells you, before he was manifested in the flesh. You go to Hebrews 1, Colossians 1, just to show you that. Let me just read that. Let me just read that. So Colossians 1 says, it says, for by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible. Whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created by him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him, and by him all things consist. Hebrews 1. It says in verse 1 and 1, chapter 1 and 1, God who has sundry times and in divers manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets, having these last days spoken unto us by his Son, whom he hath appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the worlds. John 1. John 1 and verse 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. Who was the Word? Verse 14 tells us, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. That's Emmanuel. And we beheld his glory, the glory as in the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Then it says in verse 3, all things, talking about the Word, all things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. So when you go at all the way to the beginning where it says, and where Moses writes, where he writes in 1 and 1, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. We should understand the one who did it. We should understand that perhaps it was the Father who said it and the Son did it when it comes to, when it says in Genesis also, let us make man in our image after our likeness. And let them have dominion. And then it was done. See, that one, the Most High, brothers and sisters, has a standard. And it will behoove you to walk according to it, to the best of your ability. Now let's go to Isaiah 44th chapter. Isaiah 44, because again, the one that said who he was, declared who he made heaven on, he had a question. This is Isaiah 44th chapter and verse 9. It says, they that make a graven image are all of them vanity, and their delectable things shall not profit. And they are their own witnesses. They see not nor know that they may be ashamed. Who have formed a god or molten a graven image that is profitable for nothing. You understand? See, they literally made a god. In their mind, this guy, it's just a piece of wood. It's just a piece of stone or some material, right? So it says, behold, all his fellows shall be ashamed in the work when they are of men. Let them all be gathered together. Let them stand up there, yet they shall fear. They shall be ashamed together. He said, the smith with the tongs. Now, when he say smith, he's talking about the one that does work, right, in metals and so forth, and fashion it with hammers, and worketh it with the strength of his arms. Yea, he is hungry, and his strength faileth. He drinketh no water, and is faint. The carpenter stretcheth out his rule. He marketh it out with a line. He fitteth it with planes, and he marketh it out with a compass, and maketh it after the figure of a man. So now you got the carpenter. What is he doing? Making a god, according to the beauty of a man, that it may remain in the house. He heweth him down cedars, and taketh the cypress and the oak, which he strengtheneth for himself among the trees of the forest. He planted an ash, and the rain doth nourish it. Then shall it be for a man to burn, for he will take thereof and warm himself. Yea, he kindleth it and baketh bread. Yea, he maketh a god and worshipeth it. He maketh it a graven image and falleth down thereto. Now, I talked about the problem. The title is The Problem is Improper Worship. Because what is man doing? They have taken material, wood, stone, silver, gold, and they have fashioned an image or an idol, and they worship it. But before they take the wood and they worship it, but one thing they do, they burn to keep warm. They burn to keep, like I'm cold right now. Man, if I had a fireplace right in front of me, I'd get right in front of that fireplace. They take the wood and they put it in the fire and keep warm, right? Then they take the wood and they make another fire and they burn to bake some bread, right? They're baking bread with the fire. But then he says something. And they also make a graven image and fall it down there too. He burneth part thereof in the fire, with part thereof he eateth flesh. He roasteth roast and is satisfied. Yea, he warmeth himself and said, aha, I am warm. I have seen the fire. So now he take the fire, he roasting flesh on it. He said, now with the rest of the wood, right? He take the wood, now the rest of the wood, it said, and the residue thereof, he maketh a god. You see, this man is crazy. That's man. That's what we do. All to deny God and to not come into subjection to what he wants. They make their own God. He falleth down unto it and worshipeth it and prayeth unto it and saith, deliver me, for thou art my God. Now, how is this your God when you just took part of it and burned it in some fire? And that's what he's telling you. They have not known nor understand. For he has shut their eyes that they cannot see, and their hearts that they cannot understand. See, there's certain things, brothers and sisters, are not about logic. And what I mean by that is you can have somebody who's considered a quote-unquote genius, and you can have somebody that's illiterate or a functioning illiterate. They barely can read, but who's a so-called genius is so smart that they dumb because they deny God. And the one that's illiterate said, now that makes sense to me. And they will start trying to read the scriptures and end up reading. I've seen that. And trying to serve God, and at first couldn't read, but then somebody, you tell it to them, and it's clear as day in the scriptures, they can't figure it out. See? He said, for he has shut their eyes that they cannot see, and their hearts that they cannot understand. How foolish this is. Even if I give you an example of this, brothers and sisters, even if you look at these quote unquote certain church fathers like Aquinas and some of these people would literally, like, scholastically, academically, these people could be considered geniuses. Extremely high IQs when you read their writings. Speaking all these languages, studying for their whole entire life, but can't get it. But still at the same time falling down to idols. Peace to everybody that's listening. So it says, and none considereth in his heart, neither is there knowledge nor understanding to say. Now this, but it should just common sense. You would think it would just tell you, now hold on. I have burned part of it in the fire. Yea, also I have baked bread upon the coals thereof. I have roasted flesh and eaten it, and shall I make the residue thereof an abomination? Shall I fall down to the stock of a tree? Right? Should I do that? Does that make any sense? But when you in spiritual, darkness, it's not even about logic. You're just blind to what you see should be obvious. Somebody said book smart but spiritually dumb. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not just saying, I've literally seen that. Well, people can, a brother could barely read, but he end up reading them scriptures. But then somebody, you say, I know you first all I used to think that initially. That thought went out of my mind real quick. When I first got in the word, I said, oh, okay, somebody's intelligent, they gonna hear this. No. That don't have nothing to do with it. No, that don't have nothing to do with it. But let's go to Jeremiah, because he said a stock of a tree. Jeremiah, the 10th chapter. See, they made their own stand. Man has made his own standard of worship. Jeremiah, the 10th chapter, and we're gonna pick it up at verse. Let's see, verse 1. He says in Jeremiah 10:1, he said, "Hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen." Now, wait, who are the heathen? A heathen, you used to hear that word all the time. I didn't know what a heathen was growing up. I thought a heathen was my cousin because he was a criminal. You just say, oh, he a heathen. You just hear the old people say that all the time. Older folks say that. He a heathen. Esther on Flapping the Son used to say heathen. I never knew what a heathen was. A heathen is somebody that just don't know God. So you think about it. The one that doesn't know God. So again, you have those who created their own God, and you have those who deny the existence of God altogether. But the majority of people have some kind of belief in a God, but what they've done is they've created that God. They've concocted that God in the vain imagination of their mind. So he tells you, and so when they look at the creation that was created by, like we read about the one who made the heavens, right? They look at the creation and they form their God and associated with various attributes found in nature. That's why you got a sun. Hold on. Give me a second. Just to read this to you real quick. That's why you got a sun god. This is from the book called The Secret Teaching of All Ages, Manly P. Hall. It was an occultist. It said the adoration of the sun was one of the earliest and most natural. It's on page 116. The adoration of the sun was one of the earliest and most natural forms of religious expression. Complex modern theologies are merely involvements and amplifications of this simple aboriginal belief. The primitive mind, recognizing the beneficent power of the solar orb, adored it as the proxy of the supreme deity. See, they worshiping the sun, right? Like Napoleon said. We'll read something here out of the Pagan Origins of Christian Holidays. He says something. If I can find it real quick. In the chapter Sunday, the day of the S-U-N, not the S-O-N. He says, Napoleon Bonaparte said, if I had to choose a religion, the sun as the universal giver of life would be my God. That's Napoleon said that. So now that's something that's common. So you look at it, so you say, oh, this is the giver of life, not understanding that the sun was created. Understand, scientists say the sun don't die after a certain point. Like a star, like stars die all the time. So why would you sit there and worship it? Nevertheless, it says Albert Pike makes the following. He came up with the founder of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. But he says, to them Aboriginal peoples, he, the sun, was the innate fire of bodies, the fire of nature, author of life, heat and ignition. He was to them the efficient cause of all generations, for without him there was no movement, no existence, no form. He was to them immense, indivisible, imperishable, and everywhere present. It was their need of light and of his creative energy that was felt by all men, and nothing was more fearful to them than his absence. Right? So that's why there was the veneration of things that would still be alive in the winter when it was absent, so to speak. For example, evergreen trees. Okay. His benefit influences caused his identification with the principle of good, and the Brahma of the Hindus, and Mithras of the Persians, and Atum and Amun and Ptah and Osiris of the Egyptians, and Baal of the Chaldeans, and Adonai of the Phoenicians, and Adonis and Apollo of the Greeks became but personifications of the sun, the regenerating principle, image of that fecundity which perpetuates and rejuvenates the world's existence. And that's why they worship the sun. And they just had sun. They personified that worship. So now it says in Jeremiah the 10th chapter, he said in verse 2, he said, thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. We just read that. For the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe. They deck it with silver and gold. So now they're overlaying this wood with silver and with gold. Then it says something. They fasten it with nails and with hammers that move not. They are upright as the palm tree, but speak not. They must needs be born because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither also it is in them to do good. Right? Then it says, for as much as there is none like unto thee, O Lord, thou art great, and thy name is great in might. So now he's acknowledging how great the true and living God is. Right? Then it says, who would not fear thee, O King of nations? For to thee doth it appertain. For as much as among all the wise men of the nations and in all their kingdoms, there is none like unto thee. Right? None like God. But then he says, but they are altogether brutish and foolish. The stock is a doctrine of vanities. What stock? The stock of a tree. But that's what people will go and worship. They will literally make a god. Then it says in verse 10, but the Lord is the true God. He is the living God and an everlasting king. At his wrath, the earth shall tremble, and the nations shall not be able to abide his indignation. Thus shall ye say unto them, the gods that have not made the heavens and the earth, even they shall perish from the earth and from under these heavens. He hath made the earth by his power. See, these gods, these false gods that man create have no power. He hath established the world by his wisdom and hath stretched the heavens by his discretion. That's what he's done. But people would rather serve Romans 1, rather serve and worship a false god. Romans 1 in verse 18. Because it's how we read about the wrath of God that's coming. He said, even your false gods going to be burned up. Now here Paul talks about the guilt of the world and how mankind and how all of humanity is guilty for doing something. Let's find out what they did. Romans 1 and verse 18. It says, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God showed it unto them. So now, he said everybody's guilty. They hold a particular truth, but they hold it in unrighteousness. What is this truth? Verse 19 again says, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God hath showed it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. What was made? Genesis 1 and 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. That's what was made. And again, the creation declared the glory of God. And the firmament showeth his handiwork. It shows you that God exists. So how in the world can you not do what he says? How in the world can you make up a God? But this is what man has done wholesale. And that's why wrath is coming. That's why he's coming back in flaming fire, taking vengeance on them that know not God and that obey not his gospel. It's not going to be rain next time. It's going to be fire. This earth's going to be purged. This earth is going to be burned, and few men left. Why? Because they have broken his laws. That's why. He says again in verse 20, he said, for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. See, you don't have excuse not to worship God because you know there is one. And once you know there is a God, the next logical step that one must take is to find out what that God requires. See, this is not rocket science. But because man has denied God, it becomes something that can't nobody understand. It becomes something where, I think this and I think that, and I'm spiritual, but you don't keep the law. The law is spiritual. So what has man done in the denial of God? He's made his own. Verse 21, because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Like I said, man is in darkness with all his intelligence. All these things about all the things that I saw some today where they were talking about using 5G technology. All that man has done. We're in an age now where they phasing out all kind of jobs due to automation and artificial intelligence. Man is not about his intelligence. It's about his obstinance and his unwillingness, his arrogance, and his unwillingness to serve the one that made him. So it said, because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like the corruptible man, and to birds, and to four-footed beasts, and creeping things. So what did man do? Man made God. We've been reading about in Jeremiah and Isaiah about how man made gods, right? And worshiping these gods, bowing down to them, showing them honor and reverence, and denying the true and living God, because he told you have no other gods before you. He told you make no graven image. The law of the Lord is perfect. So now, once you make your own God, brothers and sisters, now your actions, your activities, your behavior is dictated by your flesh and what you decide to do. What you decide is pious. You have people going through all extremes, all type of things, taking a vow of silence, doing all these things. Show me in the book where he told you to do that. You got people that'll make a journey, and they'll get on there, crawl on their knees. Where you see that at? You got people going to Mecca, right? To see the Kaaba stone. Right? You didn't lie and made a narrative about that, and you worshiping that and reverencing that. He didn't tell you to do that. But then again, what you take the Quran, I call it Quran a comic book / coloring book. It's plagiarized, for one. You can't even understand the Quran reading it. And it's all, man, I did a lesson some few months ago about how it's bogus, how it's plagiarized. But again, why am I saying that? Because that's another example of how people just take, again, everybody claiming a lot of times in one way or another to deal with some kind of scripture. How do you get that? Right? Because people do what they want to do. And there is danger in doing that, we shall see. He didn't tell you about Ramadan. Mecca ain't no place special. But nevertheless, he said, and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like the corruptible man, and to birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. So you have those who would make images. You have those who would make images. He said, wherefore? Now see, once you do that, your behavior goes right along with that. That's what people don't understand. Your behavior goes right along with that. How can we expect some people who fall down and worship idols to act right? The Catholic Church show you that. I talked about it in the lesson, after all this, I didn't say you. I say you still Catholic, right? You still Catholic. After all this, you got children, their children ruined their lives through molestation. You got children. A bunch of I saw an article. They said, man, it's children that have been, their fathers are they biological fathers are Catholic priests. They say they all over the place, and that was something I hadn't. I mean, I knew sometimes, obviously, because you would hear stories like out of the, in the Vatican and stuff like that. It was a story not too long ago where they were dealing with prostitutes. That was a story. Right, the priests dealing with little boys. They was dealing with the nuns. He said, man, no, they dealing with the parishioners, and they said, man, there's babies everywhere. I saw one thing they were talking about how they would abortions for the nuns. But what should you expect? They worship idols and are Luciferian and pagan to the core. So what else should you expect? So it said, for God also gave them up to uncleanness through the lust of their own hearts, to the son of their own bodies between themselves. So now once you deny God, you in darkness. Now you don't, which should govern your behavior. But once you do away with him, you don't know what you should be doing. So now you think it's okay for a man to be with a man and a woman to be with a woman. And that's what he's saying here. He says, who changed the truth of God into a lie and worship and serve the creature more than the creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. And it says, for this cause, God gave them up unto vile affections. So now he's giving you up. In other words, you dealing with this inappropriate, illicit sexual behavior because you've done away with God, who will give you a standard of morality in the first place. So now you would actually argue, despite the fact that anatomically it's incorrect, despite the fact that it's telling you that, nature tells you that that's not what it should be. Divine law tells you, or the law of God tells you that you shouldn't deal with a woman. You try to position yourself as moral. Give me a break. It says, and likewise also the men leaving the natural use of the woman. That's like the adulteress saying he's moral. No, it can't possibly be. And likewise, also the men leaving the natural use of the woman. Well, I'm going to go to verse 26 again. It said, for this cause God gave them up unto vile affections. For even their woman did change the natural use into that which is against nature. And likewise, also the men leaving the natural use of the woman burn in their lust one toward another. Men with men working that which is unseemly and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error, which was meat. That is violence against your body. That's violence against your body. Men and men, you're not built to do that. That is violence against one's body. But he said, you dealing in that. Why are you dealing in that? Because you don't know God. You don't know God. You in darkness. Straight up darkness. Let's go to, because you made an image, but let's see something. Let's go to Deuteronomy. Let's just show you something real quick. Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter. Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter. And I want to pick it up at verse give me 1 second. Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter. I'm going to pick it up at verse 12. Actually, in verse 14. And the Lord commanded me at that time, this is Moses talking, to teach you statutes and judgments that you might do them in the land where ye go over to possess it. Now you got law, statutes, and commandments. Then it says, take ye therefore good heed unto yourselves. For ye saw no manner of similitude on the day that the Lord spake unto you and hold up out of the midst of the fire. Lest ye corrupt yourselves and make you a graven image, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of male or female. He didn't give you, he didn't show you that. And so what you making? That's the question. You making it all out the vain imagination of your mind. And man has been creating gods. Israel, they in false worship, they made a golden calf in Egypt. Jeroboam made golden calves, right? And so it's real, brothers and sisters. It's real. It's a tight rope you have to walk, so to speak, because you can't just worship God any kind of way. You just can't. You just can't. Let's just show you some examples of that. This is so now, even when you dealing with, you got people. Now this is Leviticus. I want to pick it up real quick. Then I'm gonna go to Leviticus. Exodus, the 24th chapter. Just show you something real quick. Exodus, the 24th chapter. Just to point this out. Exodus, the 24th chapter, and I want to pick it up at verse 1. It says, and he said unto Moses, come up unto the Lord, thou and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and worship ye afar off. So now he told them to come up, right? He told them to come up. And it says in verse 9, then went up Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and they saw the God of Israel, and there was under his feet, as it were, a paved work of a sapphire stone, and as it were, the body of heaven in its clearness. Now they saw him. Now let's go to Leviticus, the 10th chapter. It said Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders. They saw him. But now, when it comes, see, people think they can worship. You shouldn't think after reading the scripture you can worship God any kind of way. You should understand that there is a God, that you can't just create your own God, and that this God, that is the true and living God, who manifested himself unto Israel, who gave his law. He had a standard of morality. He had a Torah that instructs us on how to worship him. This is Leviticus, the 10th chapter, in verse 1. It says, and Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took either of them his censer, and put fire therein, and put incense thereon, and offered strange fire before the Lord, which he commanded them not. So now they engaged in some type of worship and some practice. He didn't tell them to do that. He called it strange. And so what happened? Now remember, I just read in Exodus 24, they were some of the ones that saw God. You got to think about that. They saw God. And God, being omniscient, knew, yeah, I'm going to kill them later for sinning. But you got to think about how you said you seen God. They saw God. Verse 2. And there went out fire from the Lord and devoured them, and they died before the Lord. And then Moses said unto Aaron, this is it that the Lord spake, saying, I will be sanctified in them that come nigh me or near me. And before all the people, I will be glorified. And Aaron held his peace. He's like, man, you better not say nothing. You better not say nothing. Man's sons died because they were worshiping falsely. But they just saw the Lord. That should let you know, brothers and sisters, you cannot worship God any kind of way. Just to show you another example, let's see real quick, Exodus 32. Now, this is after Israel made a golden calf. Let's just see something that the Lord said. Exodus 32, and we're going to pick it up at verse... We'll pick it up at verse 10 or verse 9. It says, and the Lord said unto Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now, therefore, let me alone, that my wrath may wax hot against them, and that I may consume them, and I will make of thee a great nation. He was going to kill everybody. He was going to kill everybody had it not been for the advocacy and the intercession of Moses. He was going to kill them all except for Moses. See, that lets you know you can't just worship God any kind of way. Let's go to, we're going to, let's see. First Chronicles. Let's go to First Chronicles. And we want to pick it up at verse, with First Chronicles, the 13th chapter, we want to pick it up at verse 1. Because here David is trying to bring back the Ark of the Covenant, right? And it says in verse 1 of First Chronicles 13. And David consulted the captains of thousands and hundreds, and with every leader. It says, and David said unto all the congregation of Israel, if it seem good unto you, and that it be of the Lord our God, let us send abroad unto our brethren everywhere that are left in the land of Israel, and with them also the priests, and them also to the priests and Levites which are in the cities and suburbs, that they may gather themselves unto us, and let us bring again the ark of our God to us. For we inquired not at it in the days of Saul. And all the congregation said that they will do so. For the thing was right in the eyes of all the people. Okay, so now they say, hey, this is what we need to do. Right? So now they say, everybody, we're going to bring up this ark. Verse let's see. Verse 7. And they carried the ark of God in a new cart out of the house of Abinadab, and Uzzah and Ahio drave the cart. So now they got this cart, right? It's being pulled by oxen, and they got the Ark of the Covenant on this ark. And they got Uzzah and Ahio, they driving the cart. And David and all Israel played before the God with all their might, and with singing, with harps, and with psalteries, and with timbrels, and with cymbals, and with trumpets. So they worshiping, right? Right? You know how I just come to pray. That's just like these people. Well, it ain't like these people. They worse, way worse. When you look at these people in these churches, they talking about, they getting everybody hyped. Peace to you, brother. They getting everybody hyped right before the preacher gonna come out. You got the praise team. They getting you all hype and emotional with some good singing. So then later he can give you a half a scripture and then get in your pocket. Right? So it says they singing, they all rejoicing. But then it says something. And when they came unto the threshing floor of Kidon, Uzzah put forth his hand to hold the ark, for the oxen stumbled. Now the oxen stumbled, and from reading it seems okay. So it seems like the ark is going to fall. So he's trying to steady the ark because the oxen stumbled. Seemed like a good thing, right? But let's see what happened. And verse 10, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and he smote him because he put his hand to the ark, and there he died before the Lord. And David was displeased because the Lord had made a breach upon Uzzah, wherefore the place is called Per-Uzzah to this day. So now they was up there dancing, they getting their boogie on, it's all gravy, baby, and then Uzzah touched that ark. And then the Lord killed him. Can you imagine? I know all the partying stopped. You know how the record scratch? You ever heard that record scratch? When the record scratch in a party, like, whoa, everybody stop. Or you've been in a party, I've been in plenty of them. Back in the day, you in a party, you dancing, or you doing something you ain't got no business doing, and then next thing you know, somebody's shooting. Uh-oh. Everybody running. Or it's a fight break out. Everybody running. So now let's go. We still in First Chronicles, because we should ask the question, why did that happen? This is verse. I'm in First Chronicles 15 and verse 11. First Chronicles 15 and verse 11, because David was shook, right? And rightfully so. Verse 12 and verse 1 Corinthians 13 says, so David brought not the ark to himself. Excuse me, verse 12, it says, and David was afraid of God that day, saying, how shall I bring the ark of God home to me? Then it says, so David brought not the ark home to himself to the city of David, but carried it aside into the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. Okay, now in First Chronicles, the 15th chapter, it says in verse 11, and David called for Zadok and Abiathar the priest, and for the Levites of Uriel, Uzziah, Joel, Shemaiah, and Eliel, and Aminadab, and said unto them, ye are the chief of the fathers of the Levites, sanctify yourselves, both ye and your brethren, that ye may bring up the ark of the Lord God of Israel unto the place that I have prepared for. For because, listen to this, for because ye did it not at the first, the Lord our God made a breach upon us, for that we sought him not after the due order. What's due order? The proper way. That's what the due order is. Proper worship. Right? He never told you to put the ark on a new cart. He never told you to have that cart taken by some oxen. Who is a higher and other to drive the cart? He never told you to do that. He never said it. He never said it. So how in the world, let's go to Deuteronomy the 10th chapter. How in the world can you just make up your own thing? Now, this might seem like something simple, but it wasn't so simple because he killed Uzzah. When he tells you to do something, he mean it. This is Deuteronomy the 10th chapter, and I want to pick it up at verse... give me a second. Give me 1 second. Hold on. Actually, might do this in numbers. Give me 1 second. But yeah, he didn't. He has you. He has specific instructions. He didn't come and make you. He don't care about. Well, I think this. He never told you to do that. He has a specific thing that he has a specific way on how he wants things done. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. Never told you to take it and put it on a new ark. Right? So you all that I'm worshiping in the spirit. You dealing with Christmas, that's paid. Yeah, but I do it my way. I do it in the spirit. I saw a so-called preacher. He in New Orleans, he talking about we Israel, but then at the same time celebrating Christmas and was saying in the same breath that we Israel. I heard him. I know it's not, I'm paraphrasing, but I heard the gist of it is I know this is pagan, but they're doing it in the spirit. Man, that's a recipe for disaster. He never told you to do it. Never told you to do it. Never told you to do it. So now they put this ark on this new cart, and they weren't supposed to do that. That's why he got killed, because they didn't do it after the proper order. They didn't do it after the proper order. So he had to get the Levites. Why did he have to get the Levites and sanctify them to do it? Let's go back to First Chronicles, the 15th chapter. It says in verse 14, so the priests and the Levites sanctified themselves to bring up the ark of the Lord God of Israel, and the children of the Levites bear the ark of God upon their shoulders. Why did they do that? Numbers the fourth chapter, like I said earlier. Numbers the 4th chapter, because that's what was commanded for them to do. This is Numbers the 4th chapter, the 5th verse. Hold on. No, that ain't. Oh, hold on, man. Exodus. Yeah, Exodus the 25th chapter. Excuse me, Exodus the 25th chapter. And it says something. Talking about the ark. In verse 12, and thou shalt cast 4 rings of gold for it. Now he's telling them how the ark of the testimony is to be built. And put them in the 4 corners thereof. The 2 rings shall be in the one side of it, and the 2 rings in the other side of it. Thou shalt make staves of shittim wood. And so you got these sticks with these hooks and overlay them with gold. And thou shalt put the staves into the rings by the sides of the ark, that the ark may be borne with them. You understand? So that's how you carry it. You carry it on the shoulder of the Levites with the staves. He ain't tell you. So you can't just think that you can worship God any kind of way. Even when it comes to something like that, that don't seem like that's a big deal. But it is. But it is, brothers and sisters. I just want to show you something else. Give me 1 second. Just to show you something here. And this is Joshua, the 3rd chapter. And in verse 1, it says, and Joshua rose early in the morning, and they removed from Shittim and came to Jordan, and he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they passed over. And it came to pass after 3 days that the officers went through the host, and they commanded the people, saying, when you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God and the priests, the Levites, bearing it, then you shall remove your place and go after it. Okay, so they were bearing the ark, but what? They had it in those staves. That's what they did. Why? Because that's what the Lord commanded. But what you want to do, you want to come up with your own thing. Your own thing will get you killed. Your own thing, brothers and sisters, will get you slaughtered. Danielle says, question after the lesson, what do you do if you live I don't know what's going on with this YouTube, telling. It was 40 people on here, and then it's just slightly going down, but it is what it is. Question after the lesson, what do you do if you live with your family and they keep these vain traditions and worship God through Christianity despite what you tell them? Well, the reality is that you can't force anybody to do anything. I don't know what family you're referring to. If you say the people that you live with, I think I may have heard you mention that before, something like that. You can't. All you can do. Oh, okay, it must have went off. Okay, see, I didn't realize it went off. Okay, so all you could do is worship according to what God told you to do. Ain't really nothing you can do, but to be the eyeball out, so to speak. All you really can do is serve him. And that's what people don't realize. I'm not saying you don't realize it, but a lot of times people think because they're in the word, their family gonna be in the word. More than likely, your family not gonna be in the word. It's a blessing if they are, but more than likely, vast majority of your family is going with the rest of the world. So all you could do, again, you could be an example to them, but understand that come with the territory, and that's what he came to do. He didn't come to make everything right with your family, and that's part of it. You think about it, Cain killed Abel. We get upset because people talking bad behind our back, but Cain killed Abel. Matthew 10 and verse 34 says, think not that I have come to send peace on earth. This is Jesus talking. He said, I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I'm come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. You understand? So that go right along with it. You can be telling them all kind of things, and they're not trying to hear anything that you're saying. Peace to you. Peace to you. So it says, he that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. The main thing is that you not try to please them over pleasing God. Right? Because that's going to happen. He said your enemy is going to be right in your house. Then he says, and he that taketh not his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me. He that findeth his life shall lose it, and he that loseth his life for my sake shall find it. I know it could be troubling to you, right? Just to show you an example. Well, you saying for God to pray, you say pray for God to deliver you from there. Let's go to might be that you don't listen. People deal with that all the time. They spouse ain't dealing with the word. And it is what it is. You got to stay the course. As Peter said, you better save yourself from this untoward generation. If your spouse don't want to listen, oh well. But that's really the nature of living right now. Everybody don't have to deal with it in their house, but a lot of people do. Because houses are divided along the lines of who's gonna worship God and who's not. I was trying to find something. Give me a second. Give me 1 second to see if I can find it real quick. I just want to read something here in 2 Peter, the 2nd chapter, and he says something here. He's telling you what you need to basically consider. And then he says in verse 5, and sparing not the old world, but save nor the eighth person. Well, first of all, he talked about how God spared not the angels that sinned in verse 4, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. They're on the earth, brothers and sisters. Verse 5, so don't be confused. Verse 5, and spare not the old world, but save. That's another thing. People will read one thing and don't know what they read and use that as an excuse to walk away. That's what they do. And make a big argument and a big show about something they don't understand. And then, because you read Revelation 12, it tell you he cast them to the earth. It tell you in Job where Satan is. I just want to point that out because I read that. Because people say, wait, they're in hell? Wait, there. No, you got to understand, hell is a state of condition. So nevertheless, it said, and spare not the old world, but save nor the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly. So now, listen. You don't think, listen. Noah and his family was saved. That was it. The rest of the world drowned. Rest of the world drowned. He ain't had no other relative. And turned, just those his immediate household. And turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned with them with an overthrow. So verse 6, it says, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them with an overthrow, making them an ensample or an example, right? Unto those that after should live ungodly. You know how somebody make an example out of somebody? You know, somebody commit a crime and they like, oh man, they gonna make an example out of you. And they throw the book at you. That was an example. When you look at the world flood, that should be an example of what can happen. When you look at Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Saying like his sons-in-laws, they mocked Lot. But this is what Lot said. This is what it said about Lot. So verse 6, again, it says, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them with an overthrow, making them an ensample unto those that after should live ungodly, and delivered just Lot. Now, Lot was just. He righteous. He said, deliver him. They said, vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. So I read and said, man, you just vexed with the filthy manner of life of the people surrounding you. And that's what the righteous deal with every day. Sometimes it's just in your household. Ain't really nothing you can do but be an example to people. That's it. You can be an example to them. You don't have to condone their foolishness, though. And really understand at the end of the day, you have to basically save yourself from this untoward generation, like he says. You can't so much worry about after you done told them, yeah. And then if they ain't trying to hear, they ain't trying to hear. Ain't nothing you really can do. Because you can say that's your family, you know, and But hey, they just like your family. They just because they're your family don't mean they want to listen. That's something. I mean, that is what it is. That's just what it is. You know. One more place, then I'll be done. It's 11:30. Go Matthew the 12th chapter. And this will be it. Matthew the 12th chapter. And Matthew the 12th chapter. This might not be. I might read something else. But Matthew the 12th chapter and verse Matthew 12 and verse 46. It says, while he, referring to Jesus, yet talked to the people, behold, his mother and his brethren stood without, meaning outside, desiring to speak with him. Then one said unto him, behold, thy mother and thy brethren stand without, desiring to speak with thee. So now they said, hey man, your mother and your brother want to talk to you. Then it said, but he answered and said unto them that told him, who is my mother and who are my brethren? And he stretched forth his hand toward his disciples and said, behold, my mother and my brethren. For whosoever shall do the will of my Father, which is in heaven, the same as my brother and sister and mother. So that's showing you that, look, yeah, you got blood ties, but you also got a greater tie. And that tie is the ones who will be obedient to God, the ones who are one with Christ. And that you become one with Christ, and that's how you get to the Father. And there's a oneness that's how we a church and congregation. That's why we call each other brother and sister, because that's family. So even though your biological family is not with the God's program, you got some people who are not your kinfolk, who not by blood, but they're your kinfolk when it comes to this word. So yeah, that's part of it. That's part of it. Man, I'm in a mindset. I'm not trying to fold. I don't care what nobody's trying to do. I mean, I'm not saying I don't care about them, but it's not gonna move me to not do what I'm supposed to do because they ain't not doing what they're supposed to do. You could tell them that they don't want to hear it, they don't want to hear it. And you get vexed by people all the time. People say stuff. I had somebody just recently. Person don't say nothing to me. Don't speak to me. I don't speak to them no other time. But see me on Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. You know what I did? I didn't say a word. I kept walking like I didn't hear them. They were right in my face. Happy Valentine's Day. I just kept walking like any other day. Like any other day, like I didn't see him. Why? Well, for what? Why are you speaking to me? Because you know I don't celebrate that. You just trying to vex me. No, you can just be yelling that stuff like a fool. I'm looking through you into the task at hand, which is whatever task I got to accomplish for the day. I'm not thinking about what you're talking about. Yeah, you ain't. It's tough out. You ain't gonna be able to convert. It's gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse, brothers and sisters. You ain't seen nothing yet. That's what people don't understand. It's gonna get worse. All praise to the Most High, sis. Any wisdom come from God. It ain't me, for sure. For sure, all praise to the Most High. And again, that brother Leo listening, just peace to you. Thanks again for your assistance earlier. I appreciate it. And with that, I think I'm done, brothers and sisters. With that, I want to remind you that we're at the Household of Faith. Meet every Sabbath at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana. We invite you to worship with us. All praise to the Most High. We hear the uncut, unadulterated word of God. And hey, Sister Rebecca, peace to you. And we live stream right here on the Israel Teach YouTube channel, as well as at www.israelteach.org. And with that, brothers and sisters, it is always my prayer that you were edified.